What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my Boise State football preview for 2016. So talking about a team out of the Mountain West last year that went 9-4 overall, kind of disappointing season by Boise State standards. 5-3 in conference, tied for second in the Mountain Division of the Mountain West. So get into the first of my three key players, and I'm going to start with the quarterback, Brett Ripon. So he's coming off a season where he was first team all Mountain West as a freshman. Guy that's expected to have a big season once again in 2016. I'd expect no less from him. I mean, he's got a load of weapons around him. I'm going to get more into the running back, Jeremy Mcnichols, after this, but they got their wide receiver star coming back and Thomas Spurbeck as well. So seems like something that, the offense should really click this year. You got one sophomore coming back in Ripon, a junior in Jeremy Mcnichols, and then a senior in Spurbeck. So my second key player is the guy that I mentioned already, Jeremy Mcnichols. Running back who was actually very good for Boise State last year and is one of the more underrated running backs in the country this year as well. Mcnichols, a guy that to me really should have deserved more national spotlight. Had over 1,300 rushing yards last year, 26 total touchdowns. He's a very good receiving running back, had 460 receiving yards as well. So, again, I'm not saying that he's got to change up his game at all, just continue the production that he's shown in the last 2 years. So, my third key player moving into the defense is Ben Weaver, the returning leading tackler at linebacker from last year. So they actually, if any position is deep on defense for Boise State, it's linebacker. 3 returning starters in Ben Weaver, Chancellor James, and Tanner Vallejo. And actually, I believe 2 of the leading tacklers returning in Weaver and Vallejo. The linebacking corps is going to have to be big for Boise State this year. They're pretty much going to have to completely rebuild the defensive line. Sam Mccaskill is going to be big there. Mention more on that later. But again, with, I believe, only 2 returning starters in the secondary and maybe 1 returning starter on the defensive line. I don't even know if they have a single one coming back. That linebacking corps is going to have to be big. So my first X factor, something I was just talking about, is the defensive line. Again, they pretty much have to completely rebuild it. Sam Mccaskill, if you're a Boise State fan, you probably already know the name, but a name that you should get to know for sure. Boise State, a team that has relied on defense in years past, but last year defense was kind of disappointing. Obviously, until the end of the year against Northern Illinois, defense really showed up big there. They lose, pretty much all 4 starters. They lose 3 starters. So, Jabril Frazier, Gabe Perez, 2 guys to watch out for also on the defensive line this year. Really, those are the only 3 players, and then with Mccaskill that I mentioned before, that have any sort of game experience before. So my second X factor is depth. This is a Boise State team that, while they have a lot of offensive stars coming back, it seems like there's not a whole lot of depth around those offensive stars. At wide receiver, again, name to watch out for, Chaz Anderson. You also got DJ Dean, AJ Richardson, and if you want to dig really deep, Austin Cottrell. At least those are the names starting on the depth chart. Again, if there's anyone else on Boise State that you know about, I couldn't find a more updated depth chart than 324. And as far as my research goes, this is the best one. So if you do know any other big playmakers you think will step up this year, definitely let me know. But again, the depth is going to be a somewhat of a concern. A team that, if they struggle with injury this year, could be another season a lot like 2015. Corey Young, Devin DeMoss, 2 guys to also watch out for running back. So, get into my trap game for Boise State, and I think it's going to be Wyoming. Now, here's my thing with Boise State and Wyoming. I don't think, when you're thinking about, what the spread will be or what the game should be close at all. A lot of my trap games are games that might be close anyway. The talent difference between Wyoming and Boise State right now should be immense. But Wyoming, a team that can present challenges at times. Wyoming, not the worst team in the Mountain West either. and I believe that Boise State does have to go to visit Wyoming this year. So my biggest game for Boise State, it's a pretty obvious one, and it's Air Force. Air Force, the team that actually won the Mountain Division last year. Again, Boise State was the favorite coming into the year. Air Force got the best of them last year. I believe it's the final game of the regular season for Boise State this year. They have to go to Air Force, so that's going to be a big game if you're a Mountain West fan or a fan of any team in the Mountain West. The BYU and Wazoo games are very, very massive out of conference. Just for it, let's be honest, if Boise State clears their schedule this year, they have a very reasonable chance of going undefeated this year. A team that's not that many people have talked about it though. And BYU and Washington State, if they can win both those games and both those teams are as good as they're expected to be, then that's a good case for the college football playoff. But again, Air Force, that game at the end, conference-wise, that's what matters. So get into my record prediction for Boise State, and I think they're going to go 12-2. Again, I know it's a big difference from last year. It's actually kind of refreshing to say a record prediction that, is not very similar to a team's record last year. It's a little bit similar, but it's about 3 wins off. I think that this Boise State team will be able to get back to the Mountain West Championship game and win. I think that they're by far the favorite to do so. Air Force will be a good team this year, no doubt. Another team you have to watch out for this year is definitely Colorado State. I actually think Colorado State can be pretty good this year. But again, I think this is Boise State's conference to lose, and I think that they'll be able to. I think 1-loss regular season with a bowl loss or a 2-loss regular season with a bowl win is kind of the way it's going to go. So that pretty much does it for my Boise State preview for 2016. I'll be coming back later today with my Syracuse Orange preview, so moving back into the ACC. But that's pretty much it. See ya.